naka def
yow foo joxee
mbaa defu da suma tool balaa wari yoon
man de man faa tehi man
yaa ngi toog di daa dégg son
man faa tehi di man suma tool bi fa booy baaxatul
xanaa doo dee use engrais fertilizer
ndax man loolu yow bu wuti ko foofu faa tehi dem ca dépôt ba dafa wuti fa sori
gis nga mbayum léegi boo amul fertilizer du baax de engrais kenn jëndeetu ko ci def
boo ko jëlee ci dépôt foo koy amee
kay yaa ngi doog a ñëw xam nga Reliance banque bi ñuy wax Reliance
faa koy dégg waaw
kay gis nga boo demee Reliance ci boppam foofu ngay fayee saako yi nga bëgg nu mu toll nga fay ba pare ñu jox la sa receipt gis nga receipt boobu ñu lay jox moom ngay yóbbu nag ca dépôt ba
kon fu ne ko dem ci dépôt ba te yóbbu la kay doo ko am
déedéet
fu ne su ma jógoon su ma xaalis ba dem ci dépôt ba dama am
déedéet doo am foog nga dem Reliance fay ba pare
waaw
soo ko dem nag ak sa receipt ca dépôt ba waa Gambia Groundnut Corporation lii la ñu wax
yow fi ne fa nga jëm ni la
waaw fa laay dem ni
xaaral kon kay ni jàmm jox la nga jëndaaleel ma ay yow ma de fi di saako doon yàgg te dama ko xam
maa la ko wax de
boo xàggee jëndaaleel ma
mbokk yi nii lañ ko bëggee waa Gambia Groundnut Corporation ñu ne saako engrais $700 dong lay jar muy $200 rek yomb na lool daw leen Reliance bu leen gën a jege si PMS tam dañuy jaay comme ni ko Reliance di jaayee boo fa demee dinañ la jaay te engrais bii pour réew mi kese la bëgguñ mu génn réew mi.
It's a warm welcome here in our studio in Serekunda. This is Star TV News with me, Maymuna Jufadera. In the headlines tonight, National Defense Policy Formulation Conference commences at Joint Officers Mess. President Adama Barrow's state of public emergency continues to exist in the whole country. Fate of intending Hajj pilgrims to Mecca this year not known. National Food Security Processing and Marketing Corporation shed light on factors of poor groundnuts productivity in the Gambia. On the international scene, Burundi President Pierre Nkurunziza dies at 55. Fierce cases and deaths are being underreported in Yemen. Well, those were the headlines, and now the news in details. The National Defense Policy is currently being formulated by the Ministry of Defense and stakeholders as guidelines and framework for the operations of the Gambia Armed Forces at the joint offices in Kotu on Tuesday, which will help greatly in the cooperation of the security personnel, especially in the process of the security sector reform. The document seeks to provide a national policy guidelines and framework to military institutions. Bintakoli files in this report.
Since the government took over office in December 2016, many Gambians were optimistic that they will do their utmost best to make a lot of change in the country's security sector, which many believe that it was seriously damaged by the former regime. In his opening remark, the Minister of Defense, Honorable Sheikh Omar Faye, said the President of the Republic of the Gambia, His Excellency President Adama Barrow, have a desire to have a well-standard security in the Gambia, and that is the goal that they are set to achieve.
The desire of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Mr. Adama Barrow, and indeed the entire nation, is to have an armed forces that is properly manned, trained, and equipped to fulfill their constitutional mandates. This is what the defense policy must achieve if we are to maintain the trust and confidence of all Gambians.
Minister Faye outlines that there is no doubt the current setup needs to be reformed in order to have a great accountability and efficient service, as he also gave a summary of some of the things this policy will pay attention to.
The defense policy will determine the ways and means to achieve these results. In our reform process, there are vexing issues that need to be thoroughly examined. We should establish a coherent chain of command that allows each commander to operate at their proper level, be it at the strategic, operational, or tactical. Our force structure should aim at the creation of organization and units that will ensure proper administration of the military, whilst also ensuring adequate participation in national development and emergencies.
Also in attendance was the Chief of Defense Staff, General Yankuba Drame, who indicated that since the change of government, they have made promises on some issues to work on which are attainable as far as the Gambia Armed Forces is concerned.
They were designed with the premise to have an armed forces that is subordinate and accountable and professional to civil authority. An armed forces whose actions and behaviors fall squarely within international best practices and, of course, international humanitarian law. An armed forces that is sensitive to the needs and aspirations of every Gambians and non-Gambians alike resident in this country. And last but not the least, an armed forces that can effectively and efficiently discharge its constitutional mandates and other assigned roles to the satisfaction and admiration of all Gambians and non-Gambian alike.
With the slow security sector reform, many Gambians have lost hope that it will never be attainable. But with this conference, it might put smiles on the face of many Gambians who might believe that soon the security sector reform will be achieved. For Star TV News, I am Binda Koli.
In a press release sent to media houses from the Ministry of Information and Communication Infrastructure, His Excellency President Adama Barrow declares that a state of public emergency continues to exist in the whole of the Gambia. The release reads, in exercise of the powers vested in him by Section 34(6) of the 1997 Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, His Excellency President Adama Barrow declares that a state of public emergency continues to exist in the whole of the Gambia. This further declaration shall last for a period of 21 days, pass 1 to Section 34(2), with effect from today, 10 June 2020. Therefore, all the emergency regulations issued on the Emergency Powers Act shall continue to apply during the period of the state of public emergency. The release ends. The chairman of the Hajj Commission, Alhaji Usman Jah, said the fate of Muslims ready to perform the fifth pillar of Islam this year is not known because they have not received any information from the host Mecca. The only thing they are told is to put on hold to any registration or collection of money for the time being due to the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Dado Cham reports.
Hajj, which is the performing of pilgrimage to Mecca, is done by Muslims annually. In an interview with the chairman of the Hajj Commission, he said they cannot tell the exact status of Hajj this year due to the fight against the coronavirus. Therefore, the Gambia is advised by Mecca authorities to not collect any payment of Hajj procedures from anyone for now, for they will get back to them with clear information.
The status of Hajj for this year is still not clear. As we know, Saudi Arabia is the host, but up to date we haven't received anything, any communication confirmed that Hajj will be conducted this year. The last communication reached our office through the minister responsible for religious affairs, mentioned that it's not yet Hajj 2020 Hajj is not yet decided due to the status of the fight against COVID-19. The Gambia is advised not to involve in any agreement that may warrant any payment of money.
Mr. Jah said if there is any way authorities decided to not go ahead with Hajj procedures, Everybody should know, especially the people intending to perform the religious act this year, that Islam is fair, for it goes with every action protecting them.
Islam allows any measure that help mankind to avoid the threat. So it will be very lawful and acceptable if the authorities sees that conducting Hajj may contribute in more risk that pilgrims will face. It will be lawful for them definitely to cancel Hajj for this year.
Ustaz Jah also clarified that it is not a matter of committing a sin under such circumstances by not performing religious activities, or it is hold accountable to authorities responsible. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Dado Cham.
The Managing Director of the National Food Security Processing and Marketing Corporations, Mr. Mohamed Jai, explains to Star TV the factors that leads to low groundnut productivity in the Gambia and measures his corporation has taken to improve the productivity as the rainy season approaches. Our reporter Mariama Dem had an interview with him today, and she now reports.
About 3 decades ago, the Gambia was one of the highest exporters of groundnut in the sub-region. That trend has been declining for the past decade or more. In response to the poor groundnut productivity in the country, Mr. Njai says the factors that lead to the low groundnut productivity in the Gambia is the social aspect, like the rural-urban rift and the conversion of some groundnut farmlands to horticultural farms, and also the competition between the private sector and the government when it comes to the buying of groundnuts from the farmers. He also went on to explain the measures his corporation is taking in order to limit the poor groundnut productivity in the country.
I think we are doing a lot. We've started engaging some of the stakeholders to come to terms in terms of how do we address this, because we cannot do it alone. This will require a holistic approach, a holistic participation from all stakeholders involved, from the National Assembly to the Ministry, and also to the farmers. So basically, when I joined, I think we had a series of meetings with the National Assembly, and then we discussed issues of those challenges of the private agents that are coming and also disrupting the market, and we also discussed on the issue of us subsidizing the farmers, and then we are not also getting what is required, because we give them the fertilizer, but they also sell to other private agents.
He further said that his corporation should compete with the private sector to show the farmers selling their groundnuts to his cooperative is far beneficial to them, as it will uplift the country's economy.
So we have to be competitive. We have to compete with those private agents, and then to demonstrate to the farmers that if they sell to us, the benefits are far-reaching. Because what we do is we buy, we process, and then we export. If we export, we expect foreign exchange income. The foreign exchange income will help the economy of the country, because if you know that most of our consumables are imported, but if you are importing, you would need foreign exchange to import. So if we are getting enough foreign exchange for our country, it will not be expensive for the importers to bring in the commodities. But if we don't have enough foreign exchange, it means that they will have to source it at a more expensive price, which also affects the price of the commodities subsequently. So the messaging has to be very, very, very clear to the farmers that if they sell to us, they're helping the country. But at the same time, we also have to help the farmers.
He noted that they're trying to restructure all the groundnut selling points in the country to make it easy for the groundnut farmers.
The SECOs, the cooperative marketing societies, those are all areas that we are discussing with some of our stakeholder partners, with agribusiness, for instance. We are trying to see how to revitalize the cooperatives, to have them more structured in such a way that the farmers will be able to deliver to them, and they will be paid on time. And they will also be given other incentives such as soft loans. But that's a long-term project, but it has been initiated by agribusiness. We are in discussion with them.
However, Njai says his corporation is trying to establish projects that will empower young entrepreneurs to go for agribusiness and to make people understand that farming is an income-generating activity.
People need to understand that farming is actually an income-generating activity if you do it properly. So the idea that we have now is to engage some of these projects, like the NGOs, the YEPs, the GIZs, and then try to see how we can collaborate with them. Because I'm sure they will have a cohort of young people, entrepreneurs who want to go do agribusiness. So the plan is we will engage them, and then we will have them organize those young entrepreneurs who are into farming, and then we will give them all the necessary support, like we'll give them the farming implements, the fertilizer, and then we'll help them manage their farms and then buy the products from them.
He says that their mandate as a corporation is to create access to market for farmers, especially those ones engaged in groundnut productivity. They also provide subsidized farmers' need through the government, which is way cheaper for the farmers, by also providing huge amount that will go a long way to help them. Mariama Dem, reporting for Star TV News.
Well, we'll now go for a short commercial break and stay tuned. We'll be right back.
na fi fe be fela be fada fi fe be fada mal be kel nyami njang ha ni nga jam bando ni bare ni nay fele do ko bala de inu mbara abra inu mbara ni ko do buga nyamoti ha won janti kay ndungi be do ko bala janko mbe do ko walal de bar fenkil nañ jaxal jang nga fem fi jabu ka bete nga fem fi jabu ka bete nga fem fi ko jaxal dafa mal be kel nyaadi de
ne jam bando soto angare nying leo soto yake jang ila soto fengo fam be yiru wala
ye jambando ha wato alhamdulillah sa jambando mo sol la nyaadi le
sanyi moli abla kata fan kata depo nyinto hani ni futata je depo to sanyi buka wafi de ka kodo ta mo bulu ka boto dila wo bo sanyi wo botale sanyi mimbe kering wala nyinti ko reliance ibita wolto ye kodo jo ne kodo jo reliance ka risitol dila risito nyinga ku matal de wo risito nyin ni adila e ka wole samba depo nyintu ne risito di yela jambando soto
comme ngi yek mo fu nyami ngamoyle nim fana bodo janko denke mbira jambando sanna
GGC wole Gambia Groundnut Corporation wolle be mararen nyin jambando la kola andu ila nyin jang ngalo ne nyin jambando ni yake jang ifa mba fola nyela
tumondo bar be jambando kale fana ngajibe nim bodo ya mbita wolto mbita sekolo direct nim tara ye rek mbe jambando sanna oto mbaadiŋol ñewode ñul naatata kana mol dahandi GGC ka jambando data la mole fadala si ceme worwula he ñomo altentu baldi mbatu woto nimboru bayta ngata na jambando la ko do jo woto jang msan sa mbe wutule ngata fo reliance nganna jambando la ko do joje to ngana risito ta ngata depo walla ngaji be CPMS katu ñindu la fulol de min suriyata na rek nin tara nga joje benna jambando sotla al nimbara bak ala baraka. Hey, alhamdulillah. Nyomu ala tentu bal. Moro nyina metu abdena no sana.
Welcome back after that short commercial break, and we now look at the news beyond our borders. The president of Burundi, Pierre Nkurunziza, had died at the age of 55, just weeks before he was due to step down from office. A government statement says he had a heart attack, but there is speculation that he may have contracted coronavirus. President Nkurunziza came to power in 2005 as part of a peace deal that ended a years-long civil war. Al Jazeera's Rahila Mohammed looks back at his life.
Pierre Nkurunziza came to power with a pledge to heal a divided Burundi. But his time in office was tainted by a crackdown on his political opponents. The former rebel leader became president in 2005 as part of a peace deal that ended a years-long civil war.
I swear to ban all ideologies of ethnic division and genocide. I swear to work for the development of all Burundi.
Nkurunziza won a second term in an uncontested election in 2010, but rights groups and opposition parties accused him of restricting political freedom. 5 years later, breaking constitutional norms, and despite global condemnation, he announced his intention to stand for a third term.
What is happening now is the fault of the people who are not on our side. But it is going to make us stronger than ever. Whatever happens will be their fault, not ours.
The move sparked mass protests and violence. At least 1,200 people were killed and 400,000 fled the country. In the run-up to those elections, there was an attempted coup while the president was on a visit to Tanzania. Nkurunziza imposed a further crackdown on his political opponents. The UN and human rights groups accused his security forces of torture, beatings, sexual violence and murder. Despite it all, he won his third presidential term in July 2015. But the violence continued, as did his standoff with the international community. Burundi became the first country to terminate its membership of the International Criminal Court after it started investigating allegations of abuse. In 2018, Nkurunziza held a referendum to extend presidential terms from 5 to a 7-year mandate.
You should listen to those who tell you to vote yes. If there are those who tell you no, then listen to them as well. Only you know what's in your heart.
And last month, Burundi held its first competitive presidential election despite the coronavirus pandemic. But again, it was marred by allegations of fraud and harassment. Most international observers were banned. After 15 years in power, Nkurunziza was due to step down in August, taking pride in the fact that his government, despite its troubles, brought peace to Burundi.
More than 2 weeks after his death, George Floyd has been laid to rest in Houston Cemetery. Friends and family celebrated his life in a funeral that lasted for 4.5 hours. He was involuntarily cast in the role of a civil rights icon when a Minneapolis policeman knelt on his neck for almost 9 minutes. His death has inspired protests that continue today across the United States and in countries as far away as Senegal. Al Jazeera's John Hendren reports from Houston, where Floyd grew up.
George Floyd's tragic journey ends at a Houston cemetery, but across the U.S., the movement he inspired continues. A montage of demonstrations in Floyd's name, played at his funeral, displays his legacy and inspires a call to action from civil rights leaders.
God took the rejected stone and made him the cornerstone of a movement that's going to change the whole wide world.
Friends and family remember the man they knew as Perry or Big Floyd.
I'm going to miss my brother a whole lot, and I just want to say to him, I love you, and I thank God for giving me my own personal Superman.
This is not just murder, but a hate crime. I share happy memories with my uncle. Now that's all I have, are memories. I still can't put myself together to how he is calling out my grandma a name. I believe my grandmother was right there with open arms saying, "Come home, baby. You shouldn't feel this pain. No one should feel this pain."
The life of the man who died beneath a policeman's knee was celebrated by members of Congress and a presidential candidate who spoke directly to Floyd's daughter, Gianna.
Now is the time for racial justice. That's the answer we must give to our children when they ask why. Because when there is justice for George Floyd, we will truly be on our way to racial justice in America. And then, as you said, Gianna, your daddy will have changed the world.
The funeral followed memorials in Minneapolis and North Carolina and a viewing in Houston attended by thousands who remembered his final words, "I can't breathe." In the weeks, months, and years after these people have left this ceremony, George Floyd may well be best remembered as an accidental agent of change, someone who transformed the world less by what he did than by what was done to him. Some who didn't make the invitation list inside said they were outside because they're concerned about the next generation.
I came out because I'm a black mom with 2 black sons, a daughter, and I have grandsons that's afraid of the police. And, afraid that they'll be shot because of the color of their skin.
So when you hear stories like the one about Mr. Floyd. What does that make you think?
Scared.
Yeah. George Floyd was buried next to his mother in the place he once called home.
Your family's gonna miss you, George, but your nation is going to always remember your name.
He left behind children, a family, and a movement they hope will end the pattern of unarmed African Americans dying at the hands of police. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Houston.
Well, Lester Spence is a professor at Johns Hopkins University. He says it's hard to gauge how successful the protest movement will be in bringing about real change.
I know I've never seen anything like this in my life. So it's possible we're in like a 1955 moment in American terms, where the civil rights movement is just beginning and we have 15 years of victories in front of us. Or it's possible we're in a 1968 moment where we had rebellions in the United States and around the world. And if you'd asked those participants what was going to happen, they would have said the revolution was coming. And then 1970, next thing you know, Chile gets taken over and New York City gets placed under austerity. So what I do know is that this is a moment people are doing everything we can to keep that window open, and and we'll see. I'm hopeful, and I rarely use that word. But the other thing is this legislation that we've been seeing passed, right? Again, Colorado is by no means a liberal state, and they've got significant political hurdles that organizers there have been able to overcome. So it's also about taking advantage of this moment and rolling out kind of legislation that a lot of us have been working on in cities and in states.
Fears that the coronavirus outbreak in Yemen could be worse than thought are being compounded by claims that Houthi rebels are suppressing the real tool. The UN and aid groups are also running out of money to help, with funding failing sort of what is needed for basic aid in the country. Al Jazeera's Charlotte Bellis reports.
The World Health Organization believes hundreds of people have died of coronavirus in Yemen, with thousands more infected. Yet the official tally is 112 deaths, with just 4 from Houthi areas like here in Ib. This man says they have waited for help since 8 a.m. It's now 3 p.m. People yell at him to stop recording, but he continues. He says he called health lines, security officials, politicians, and no one answered his calls. In the Houthi-controlled north, people are often buried in secret or at night. There are reports that families and gravediggers are warned not to speak of the cause of death. Test results are not released, if they are taken at all. Recording burials has become an act of heroism and defiance.
The intentional suppression of the media coverage from authorities, whether it's in the northern or southern governments, this suppression has very dangerous results. Among them is that the world doesn't know the real numbers of the epidemic.
And international agencies don't have the money to help. The UN says it needs $2.4 billion to cover essential aid in Yemen this year. In a pledging drive last week, it fell $1 billion short of that, meaning the closure of services for half of the country's hospitals and nutrition for 2.5 million starving children gone. This is the price of face masks increased 30-fold, putting them out of reach of most Yemenis and aid groups.
We see that the hospitals are closing the doors. We see that the health care providers, they are passing away. The country is running out of its healthcare providers.
One thing Yemen is not running out of is guns. 5 years into a civil war, it's the one thing traders can rely on, and they've never been more popular.
All the people want now is to support their families, so they look for a job or trade. We have found that selling weapons is a profitable business due to the situation that we were in.
Yemenis feel increasingly abandoned by the international community. They must fend for themselves, even making their own medicine.
We returned back to use what our grandfathers used, with herbs such as fenugreek, tamarind and ginger.
Yemen is likely riddled with coronavirus, but this is a country with many ailments. Yemenis have been forced to search for their own cures. Charlotte Bellis, Al Jazeera.
And before we end the news, a recap of our main headlines. National Defense Policy Formulation Conference commenced Joint Officers Mess. President Adam Barrow's state of public emergency continues to exist in the whole country. Fate of intending Hajj pilgrims to Mecca this year not known. National Food Security Processing and Marketing Corporation set lights and factors of poor groundnut productivity in the Gambia. Burundi President Pierre Nkurunziza dies at 55. Fierce cases and deaths have been underreported in Yemen. Well, that's all for this edition of the news. Please do enjoy the rest of our programs and join us tomorrow for more news. Thanks for watching and do have a blessed night.